Welcome, my friends, to Old Stonewell Farm, where we're in the season of Eastertide, and I know that I wasn't here last week with you, but I hope you had a blessed Easter and that you are continuing to see the new life that is blooming all around you, wherever you might be. I've spent the past week just taking a lot of long walks out on the trail behind the house and enjoying the raindrops and the weather getting warmer. I just had a pile of soil delivered to fill the garden beds once again, and it was just so beautiful to smell the rich soil and to know that I am being a co-creator with God. I am getting a chance to plant some seeds and see them bloom. But it's also been a difficult week with, once again, the world just overshadowed by violence. And as I take a walk with Fritz, I'm reminded that I need to open my eyes to see faith. For the seed that I plant, I need to trust that something will grow, something beautiful. And I'm reminded that to grow something beautiful in this world, we need to do the hard work. Ralph Waldo Emerson once wrote, "This is my wish for you. Comfort on difficult days, smiles when sadness intrudes, laughter to kiss your lips, sunsets to warm your heart, hugs when spirits sag, faith so that you can believe, confidence from when you doubt, courage to know yourself, patience to accept the truth, love to complete your life." I think this is the perfect way to describe the season of Easter we are in. God's wish for us, comfort when the world gets a little crazy. Many years ago, before I moved up this way to the border of upstate New York and Vermont, I now live in Vermont, but I moved up this way because I became a pastor of a small rural church in upstate New York. And this week I've been remembering a conversation I had with my mother before I moved up. It was the end of summer and she was sitting outside in my yard in New Jersey, where I owned an old house from the 1700s. And she was very upset, and I've never seen her this upset before. And she was actually crying, and I was asking her what is wrong, and she did not want me moving up to a rural area, especially the house that I was going to buy was out in the sticks on a dirt road, no cell phone service. It was really dark, and she was afraid for me. She was concerned. And I just wrote it off. Mom, please, I'm an adult now. I'm going to be okay. I don't understand why you're so scared of me moving to that remote house on a dirt road. Well, I didn't move into that house, and I chose another home here in Vermont. It's still remote, but there's no dirt road, and I do have access to neighbors I could call on if anything happens. I think about that a lot because she was crying and she was afraid for me. And that house that I originally was going to purchase and move to, it was on the very road where this past week a young 20-year-old was shot and killed. I've been thinking about this all week, and I find myself really sad and depressed and scared as to how did the world get like this? It's happened that you get killed if you accidentally pull into the wrong driveway. You get shot at if you ring the doorbell to the wrong house. This shooting that happened in upstate New York on the very same road that I was going to live on. I just don't have any words for it, any answers, except I keep thinking about my mother and how many years before she was afraid for me to move into that area. And I think a lot about my mom too, how she's always been saying to me, be careful, don't lose your temper when you're driving, don't pull into another person's driveway if you made a mistake and had to turn around. You just never know who you're dealing with. And unfortunately, my mother seems to be right. I think about that not only because it's an area that I know and it's a road that I was going to live on and there is no cell phone service. It's a community that I have pastored to, and we always thought that it wouldn't happen here, but it has. And I think about how many times in a rural area I've had to use somebody's driveway to turn around, because otherwise you would just keep going on and on and on, and you would get further away from your destination because there aren't any blocks to just turn around on. If you don't want to keep on driving, you make a U-turn in somebody's driveway. I just don't know what has happened to us. And this week especially, I feel like I'm on the Emmaus Road. We have in the scripture in the Gospel of Luke how a couple is leaving Jerusalem right after Jesus got crucified, and there are reports that the women in the group saw Jesus alive that morning, but they are leaving Jerusalem and they're on their way to Emmaus. And the conversation on the Emmaus Road is that they're very downtrodden. They had wished that Jesus was the one that was going to turn their lives around. They're still trying to process and make sense out of everything that's happening. And all of a sudden, a stranger starts walking with them, and it's Jesus, but they don't know that yet. I've always liked the story of the Emmaus Road. The very fact that Jesus meets us in our despair, in our doubts, in our sadness. He just all of a sudden comes along and starts walking with us, because it's a reminder that he is, in the season of Easter, he is our risen Lord. He is resurrected, and that means our dreams are resurrected, our hopes are resurrected. That means that he is there ready to meet us and to listen to our tales of heartache, our tales of sadness. The Emmaus Road, to me, is not just an actual road that we're told about that these people were on. To me, the Emmaus Road is a state of mind. It's that place where we often go when we are just so disheartened. It's that time in life where we had hopes, but they were all dashed, and now we're just walking away from our lives in hopes of just escaping what has happened. Frederick Buechner, who used to live up the road from me before he passed away last summer, he wrote about that the Emmaus Road is the very place that we go to escape from life. It's that place where we start to go when we realize that nothing in the world is sacred. It seems to me that Buechner is absolutely correct. For this week, I kept wondering, is there anything sacred anymore in this world? But then we are reminded that Jesus meets us. The Emmaus Road might be the road that we all take when we want to escape from whatever has happened in our lives. But the thing is that Jesus is there with us, that if we have eyes of faith to look around as we try to escape what has happened, we can see the goodness. We can see that there still is something to hold on to. Somebody once wrote that when we encounter Jesus on the road to Emmaus, he will send us back to our Jerusalem. And that's what happens when we have eyes of faith to really see what's happening in the world, to know that God will have the last word, that evil will not overtake this world. And I'm really trying to hold on to that. That once we are on that road trying to escape all that is happening, when we see Jesus with our eyes of faith, then something happens. He gives us the strength and courage to return to Jerusalem. He gives us the strength and courage to return to this broken world and be the light. It was a really tough week for me because the violence came a little too close to home. And I'm realizing more and more that, unfortunately, it's going to continue to get a little too close to our homes. Try to make sense out of it, or worse yet, we try to retreat and escape, but we have to keep having faith. We have to keep opening our eyes and know that we don't walk alone. In the story of the Emmaus Road, in which it's only in Luke's gospel, and I'm so glad that Luke included this story, because as I said, it's a story that has really made a difference in my life, to always remind me that, open my eyes, I'm not alone. But in the story, there is that one point when Jesus asks, well, what happened? Tell me more about this person that got crucified. At one point, one of the travelers says to Jesus, we had hoped. And I think that's what makes the story so powerful to me and makes it so relatable to all of us, because we have all been there. We have all said those words. I had hoped. I had hoped for that job to come through. I had hoped for that medical test to be better news. I had hoped that this would have happened. I had hoped that that would have happened. I had hoped. And then when it doesn't happen, you begin to wonder, is God really hearing you? We had hoped. And Jesus just listens to them and smiles. Yeah? What have you hoped for? Because open your eyes. Through it all, I'm always on this road with you. You had hoped. Okay, so it didn't turn out the way you wanted. But that doesn't mean Jesus isn't with you. You had hoped. Okay, so horrible things happen in this world. You had hoped that it wouldn't happen to you. But perhaps it did. Remember, Jesus is still with you. I had hoped that the locals around here were right, that nothing bad ever happens here in rural America. I had hoped. They were wrong. But this I know. Jesus is still with us on these dirt roads. I had hoped, and I will continue to hope. And so, on this day, after a week of really struggling with fear, sadness, disbelief, well, after a week of all of this, I realize my Savior is with me. It's time for me to turn around on my Emmaus Road and head back to my Jerusalem, where the rest of the world is still needing words of hope. And so, my friends, open your eyes and realize you're never alone. And whatever road that you are on right now, if you're heading to Emmaus, know this: the heartache won't last. Your disbelief will turn into belief. God is hearing all your sighs. God is wiping all your tears. I remember my mother so many years ago, afraid of me moving up to this area. That really hit home this week. It's a crazy world we're living in. But it's a world that God created. In the craziness, will give way to grace if we just keep doing our part and just keep on believing. Thanks be to God. Right, River? Psst. Come on. Come on.
Think not of casting off your dreams when the road goes on forever. All is not just as it seems, and we'll walk the road together all the way through wind and rain. I'll never deceive my heart again. Hand in hand across the land, we'll walk the road together. Think not of failing, carry on when the road goes on forever. Let all the tears and strife be gone, and we'll walk the road together all the way through wind and rain. I'll never deceive